Welcome to today's episode brought to you by Total Processing. We are joined by the highly talented tech entrepreneur, Nick Moutter. Nick is the CEO and founder of Moot, a business he launched in 2019 that is on track to achieve £50 million turnover. The business started off with a direct-to-consumer e-commerce site called Olivias, which specialises in the luxury homeware space. Moot offers end-to-end e-commerce solutions for clients, including operations, warehousing, logistics, and most importantly, technology. Welcome, Nick.
Good introduction. You covered everything, I think.
Yeah, read it from PRP, so I hope that's everything.
Yeah.
Interview over. No, thank you very much for joining us, Nick.
Pleasure, thanks for having me.
Brilliant. So if you could talk to us, obviously you went to university, we'll start from there. How have you got to where you are today?
That's a long answer,
It
isn't it?
It's going to be a few years, is it?
I'll try and give you a short version. So yeah, did the whole university thing. How applied I was during university is probably another matter. And ended up doing a law degree. I think naturally though, growing up, I was always a bit of a geek. You know, I was one of those people that I was building computers and whatnot in my bedroom, and you know, was one of the first people to kind of play around with 56k dial-ups and trying to build sites and whatnot. So I always had that kind of geeky element. Maybe I've still got it quite a bit. So when I came out of university, I ended up actually kind of mixing the two of technology and sales. So I was doing technology sales here in Manchester, actually.
Oh, nice.
And
who was that for?
It's the S3 Group.
Oh,
the
nice.
S3 Group,
Yeah.
Publicly listed company. Learned so much. The work ethic in that place, and you know, it's a very KPI driven environment.
Yeah.
And when you come out of university, you don't really know much about the real world and what working life is, do you? So it's kind of, you go into it and you think, oh, this is what all companies must be like, you know? And it was ring a bell when you did a sale. And yeah, it was like, there was no midgets being thrown or anything like that, but it was Wolf of Wall Street stuff.
I was going to say.
So did that for a few years, and I had a really amazing break, actually. I don't believe in luck a lot of the time, but I was quite lucky that my family had moved out to America, and they were involved with magazines out there, and I helped my father's business build his sites and take his publications digital, his magazine publications. And one guy who was running the MLS, the Major League Soccer, said, Terry, who's built all of your digital presence? You know, it's really good. And my dad kind of naively turned around and said, well, it's actually just my son in England. He's done it for me. And I went out there on a holiday to catch up with my family and all the rest of it, and got offered the job of head of online for the MLS and moving out to Los Angeles.
Amazing.
So moving away from technology and sales to actually kind of getting really the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
And it was the easiest job in the world.
Was it?
Easiest job in the world, because you had ridiculous budgets and they had no digital presence.
Oh, really?
So it was just go and build a digital presence.
But, and what year was this?
God, that would have been in 2009, something like that, 2008, 2009, just as Bex was going out, and that kind of whole real growth of the MLS. Yeah. So again, the budgets from Adidas and everything were just mental. But what, you know, I got some real exposure to was when it comes to advertising technology and marketing technology, you've probably seen it as well, that the States is usually 18 months to 2 years ahead of Europe, tends to be. Very much more historically, and so much now. I think there's a lot more innovation coming out of Europe than the US. Yeah. But back then, and I came back and kind of set up my own little advertising company to try and implement this technology that I was seeing in America, because the US kicked me out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Visa problems?
Yeah, I couldn't get my visa renewed, so they kicked me out and sent me back to this side of the pond. And
so you didn't get fired from MLS then, no?
No. So it was a shame, because I loved it, and I loved America and whatnot. So I came back and started my own small agency, and we helped launch the Hook Group.
Amazing.
And implementing their advertising strategy on some of their properties, and helped launch the Lad Bible. That's one hell of a story.
And was that working with the founder back
with
then?
Solly, they were one of our clients, and Solly this is a whole kind of other podcast, this one.
Another podcast episode,
he was a student still at Leeds University.
Okay.
And we got introduced via somebody, and we went and met at like Alderley Edge or Altrincham or something down the road. And he says to me, I've got this Facebook page and I'm at uni and I want to quit uni because I reckon I can make some money from this Facebook page. So what is it? So it's called Lad Bible. He said, so how do I monetize it? And how do I make any money from it? Because I can't really just leave university and not earn any money. I said, well, I need to build a website. And then what we'll do is we'll just push all of the traffic away from Facebook and all of the articles onto the site, put advertising on there and generate basic advertising revenue. He's like, can we do that? I was like, yeah, And Arian, who is his kind of co-founder at the time, helped build it. And that's how Lad Bible started.
Amazing. So also co-founder of Lad Bible.
They had a lot of issues. I don't know if this is a filtered podcast, but they kept putting boobs and stuff like that onto their website. And unfortunately, advertisers don't like their products being next to pictures of boobs.
So depends what products they're in.
Yeah, it does. So there was some problems to start off with. And then I sold that agency and started a hardcore advertising technology company called Admedo.
Nice. And that was programmatic?
Yeah, so that was kind of like the early stages of programmatic when, as I say, it was being adopted in America, but that technology hadn't come over to the UK really. And it was only when it was coming over, it was only being afforded to the big agencies, your Group M's and the people with big budgets. So the medium-sized brands and the people who were going to need to adopt this longer term were not having access to it. You know, it was £100,000 a month minimum spend and things like this. So it was just out of the, and extremely naively, I thought I can do something about this. I'm going to build the same technology and I'm going to make it accessible to the masses. And God, how naive! I didn't realise how complex this technology was, and we ended up raising about £12 million in total to build this technology.
Wow. And where were the developers based? Were they UK or?
Yeah, mainly the UK. We had some offshore developers and partnered with a couple of people, and we grew that business out across the UK, US, Europe, and whatnot. And that was kind of my first real business growth story. Yeah,
nice.
And getting involved in venture capital and institutional funding. And I think I looked 10 years younger within about 2 years. 10 years older within about 2 years. It was stressful.
Amazing. And what happened to that business then?
Yeah, so we grew it out. And I stepped back from it and exited out over a few stages. Ended up actually buying it back last year.
Amazing. Brilliant. Yeah. So when did you exit and when did you?
Exit out over a few different stages. Moved away in 2018.
Okay.
And brought in a CEO to take the reins. And she's far more intelligent and credible and better than I am. So left it in good hands. And that's when I had bought a house up north. Because I was based out in London then, and because I was spending more time in the house, I wanted to finally kit it out and all the rest of it. Yeah. And again, this is another long story, so I'm gonna try and give you the nutshell. But I was kind of in my 30s. I had a bit of capital, and I didn't want to go to IKEA and Made.com and sit on my knees with Allen keys all weekend. I kind of wanted something a bit more credible. And looked at the high street and looked at online. I just thought, God, the options are dreadful. Yeah. You had Harvey's, SCS, Oak Furniture Land, like creativity and design was dead. And I looked online and there was a couple of okay sites out there, in the mid to premium sector, but they'd been going like 10, 11 years and I'd never heard of them. Yeah. And no one I knew had ever heard of them. So I was like, there's something to be had here. And as a bit of a hobby to start off with, I kind of looked around at, how something could be created in this space. And that's really what paved the way for the whole of what Moot is now, because I'd always spent all my career generating sales online for other people and generating money online for other people, which is lovely. But, I thought it'd be nice to be the other side of the fence and eat my own lunch for once. And nice. Found out who the manufacturers and wholesalers were, because the product was around.
And how did you go about that then? So, you've come up with this idea, you realise, there's an opportunity in the market. Where did you go to find out who the suppliers were and the manufacturers were?
I spoke to interior designers. So I spoke to a couple of interior designers I knew and just asked them where they got the product from. And they were buying it from wholesalers and manufacturers direct, making their huge margin on top. So I went to the wholesalers and said, I want to get an account and sell your product online? And it was a no. They did not like online.
Oh, really?
This is pre-COVID, right? So they did not like online, and it was a categorical no. We are not working with you unless you are a physical store. We do not work with online only. Managed to convince one of them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these wholesalers are what I call a mile wide but an inch deep. That they've got hundreds of interior designer clients, but they might spend maximum 100 grand a year with them.
Yeah,
so they've got loads of clients, but no one's actually spending that much. And I was fairly arrogant and said that, if you give me an account and allow me to do how I want to, I'll be your biggest customer within 12 months. And they somehow believed me. And what I did was they want to, typically with e-commerce, and as any e-commerce owner would know, right? You buy stock from abroad, you ship it over, you put it in a warehouse, and you try and sell it online.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. I just didn't think I just didn't think it was very capital efficient, right? To put out a load of money in stock and then try and sell it. So I built a piece of technology which allowed me to hook into the warehouse management systems of the wholesalers in real time and leverage their stock levels as my own.
Amazing.
And
it's almost like a marketplace model to some degree.
Yeah, so there's no such thing as drop shipping in this world, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. And, typically everyone stocks. So I found a hybrid model, if you want to call it. I don't think we've even coined a phrase for it. It's a hybrid model where it's a real-time purchasing. So it's a very capital efficient business because we don't buy stock until we've already sold it.
Yeah.
And we ended up building out systems and processes to automate all of this.
Amazing.
I can waffle on again about this for a long time, but we were talking about Hubu a moment ago in terms of fulfillment, and the fulfillment and supply chain world is extremely antiquated. Mm-hmm. Especially like 2 years ago when we were talking about when we started, it's extremely antiquated, and how these wholesalers work and the technology they implement, it's archaic.
I can imagine, yeah.
I'm not going to name names, right? But the biggest wholesaler of premium homeware furniture in the UK, they turn over 70-80 million pounds. You have to order over the phone. They send you a document that you then have to call back up and approve. They then send you the bill, and you have to call up and pay over a card over the phone.
Over the phone payments. Oh,
and that's how they operate. And I was like, this has got to be automated. I'm a massive ambassador of simplicity.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can I simplify and automate things with the use of technology? And that's kind of all I've ever thought about. Yeah, whenever I look at anything, it's how can I automate and simplify things with technology?
Amazing.
So we built all these systems, and we called the site Olivias. And you're going to ask me, what's Olivias represent? I have no idea. I wanted a name that resonated with the demographic. Mm-hmm. I really believed that furniture and homeware was becoming just as much of a fashion statement for individuals as the clothes they wore. Yeah. We've got this selfie culture these days, and people are taking a selfie in a dress but in a big Lena mirror, and people are looking at the Lena mirror in the background of this image just as much as the dress the girl's wearing. So, and this is where I coined the phrase fashion for your home.
Nice.
So we named it Olivias to resonate with a 25 to 35 year old female demographic, and focused on fashionable homeware.
Amazing. Yeah.
So fashion for your home.
Yeah.
So we launched that in September 2019. So we're just over 2 years old.
Wow.
And, we just implemented the basic customer acquisition strategies, which we've done for 15 years for other people,
And what were they? So in terms of, getting your first customer, you've launched the site, you've got your stock as such. How do you go about getting your first customers?
We mainly paid. So paid acquisition
media
strategy. So again, because that's our background, so implemented paid acquisition strategy. I remember our first sale.
Yeah.
And it was only something like £30 odd, and we got it to the customer broken, so we didn't do a very good job on the first order. And that's when we opened up, realising that the damage rate within homeware is extremely high.
Is it?
Like if you're shipping a 2 metre high, floor mirror, it's a very fragile item. It's heavy.
Imagine, yeah.
You only have to touch that glass, and it's got to hit the edge of something. It's in bits. I think that industry average is like 8 to 10% damage rate specifically for mirrors and marble and stuff like that.
So you have to work that into your margins and.
Well, no. So I said, well, can we make it better? So this is when we worked with the courier network, and we built out our own systems to, automate and improve the QC process and everything else. And our damage rate as a business is 1.2%, which is unheard of in the homeware industry.
So how what's the approach there then? Just checking before and at delivery then?
Yeah, I'll tell you some bits of it. I'm not going to tell you all of it.
The secrets.
We're certainly, not going to say we've got it perfect, but we're definitely industry leading. Our customer satisfaction rate is through the roof. Our repeat customer rate is going up consistently, and we deliver a great service now, and it's been through trial and error.
I can imagine,
it's been through trial, and we within 6 months of launching Olivias. A guy I know who's very successful in the e-commerce world, I spoke to him, and he had an invested interest in one of our competitors at the time, which was called Houseology.
Okay, yeah.
And they've been around, they're based up in Glasgow, been around something like 10 years, 10, 12 years. And they were one of the ones that I first looked at when I was looking at the market and thinking, well, no one bloody knows them.
Yeah.
And they were the biggest. So they had a damage and refund rate of over 35%.
Wow.
And that's what killed them. And they were struggling. So I thought, well, I can take this business that's got amazing track record with all these customers. It's got all these supplier relationships. And we can sort that 35% out down to, the same as ours very, very quickly by putting it into our processes and systems. So we bought that business within 6 months of starting.
Wow.
And brought that onto the stack. And this is kind of where the long story comes in of... when we're talking about e-commerce isn't the same as what it was 10, 15 years ago in many different ways. So Ben Francis, when he started Gymshark, he could not build that business doing the same as what he did then now.
100%, I agree.
Wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And this is where there's a big difference between being an online retail business and a technology-driven e-commerce business.
Yeah.
And that shift has only been accelerated during COVID, and it's only even more prominent now. If you are not a technology-enabled e-commerce business, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
You're going to fail. And this is where the idea for the platform and everything else came, because, again, you probably know this, that the failure rate in e-commerce is incredibly high. Over 92% of all e-commerce stores fail in the first 4 months. Mm-hmm. And... the barrier to entry for e-commerce is lower than ever.
Low, yeah.
Anybody, you could go and sell shirts from your garage with a Shopify store in, a few days. But as soon as you start to scale, it actually becomes very complicated. It becomes very technology driven. It becomes expensive. You have to implement operations, systems, warehousing, customer service, CRM, customer acquisition, product management, order management, merchandise. It's a whole remit of things. And what you tend to see now with the fast growth e-commerce business is that they're licensing between 10 to 13 different pieces of technology. They're outsourcing all different elements, and it's getting really expensive, and they're losing control.
Yeah, convoluted as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the classic technology word for this is a fragmented ecosystem. Yeah. Where there's amazing point solutions out there. Shopify, what a business, right? Klarna done amazing, and all these different Klaviyo and all these individual kind of point solutions have made amazing business off the back of Shopify. Some of them in the App Store, but it's very difficult to implement all of these, to integrate them. As a brand, as an e-commerce business, you need to hire developers to integrate all these, which then takes time. You then got to have the capital to do that, which is very expensive.
Yeah.
And, with all this together, you can understand why so many fail. Yeah. Because you just can't compete unless you adopt all of these things these days. I'd say there's a little bit of a caveat to that the fast fashion world is maybe a little bit immune to some of that, because there's been lots of businesses within the fast... God, we're in Manchester. There is a new fast fashion brand every week.
Every day.
Let's go day. And most of them are flashes in the pan. And it's because they can get promotional activity and collaborations on social media, and they get a bit of traction. Yeah. And, you can get to a certain level with that. But if you want to go and compete with the likes of the Boohoo Group and those guys, you have got to take your business to a whole different game. Yeah. And this is why so many of them hit the ceiling and then fail.
And what do you find that ceiling is? I suppose it's different with every business, but do you find that there's a typical sort of point where most businesses either integrate technology or they fail?
I think that, again, fast fashion's a little bit different, but anything past 10 million. Yeah. You know, I think if you're trying to get past 10 million, that's where, you know, you've got to go and rent a warehouse for 10 years with huge amounts of space. Yeah. You've got to hire developers who aren't cheap because it's a really competitive landscape now. You've got to have customer service, you've got branding, merch, all these things which is massively expensive. So unless you can go and attract external capital investment to do that, which most people don't know how to do or either don't want to do, you're kind of stuck. And this is where I kind of thought, well, all this technology that we've built, which is Olivias has grown on, why don't we kind of package that up and make it available to third parties? Because I knew when I started, if someone said to me, hey, here's all the operations, technology, systems and solutions you need in order to be able to scale a business online really cost effectively in an expedited fashion, I'd bit the hand off. Yeah. And that's what all we're doing. Yeah. We all of this technology that we've built, that we've proven and validated with Olivias. Olivias is the fastest growing homeware company in the UK.
Amazing, yeah.
And you know, within 2 years, all on our own proprietary technology.
Amazing. So what point then? So obviously, Olivias is doing incredibly well. Has done, you know, from the day you started.
Yeah.
Why then did you decide not to put all your focus in Olivias and grow that to, you know, the largest and most significant brand within that space? Why then shift your focus slightly to go, okay, well, let's help other third parties do the same as what you've done?
There's two answers to that, and I'll be completely frank.
Yeah.
You only have to look at the market now, the public markets, and the valuations of e-commerce businesses at the minute.
Yeah.
It's not great. Mm-hmm. You get 1 times revenue on a sale or an exit, you take it at the minute.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a great place to sell an e-commerce business at the moment. And, you know, we were thinking about this obviously well before this. And again, we can talk about so much. People at home during COVID, right?
Yeah.
So many people were using this low barrier entry for e-commerce, and they were saying, I want this laissez-faire lifestyle. I'm going to start an e-commerce business. Yeah. I'm going to be the next couture club. I'm going to be the next Olivias. I'm going to be the next whatever, because I can do it as well as they can. And they will fail, right? Because they quickly realize. But anyway, going back to your point is that, you know, Olivias is definitely the baby and it's the validation and everything. But if you want to build long-term enterprise value, you can do so with an e-commerce business. But if you're a technology-enabled e-commerce business, your valuation multiple and your enterprise value as a business is so much higher than being a pure play e-com. You know, one of the challenges Boohoo has, and you know, a lot of the others, we could talk about this for ages, they outsource all their technology. You know, you were involved in a transaction there, and you know, they outsource all of the technology. There's no technology enablement. There's nothing that's their own IP.
Yeah.
They just have the brand. And this is the issue that, so there's lots of going on within the FBA roll-up space at the moment. You're seeing companies like Thrasio and Heroes and
Berlin Brands Group and those.
Yeah, they're rolling up all these companies, and that's great. And they can it's an M&A roll-up, you know, like the Hook Group was.
Yeah.
And they're building all this revenue pool. But actually, people are just buying a product from Amazon. They have no idea who the brand is behind it. They're just buying a product from Amazon. You know, we all have Amazon delivered to our house every day. As far as we're concerned, we've bought
just
a
Amazon.
product. Yeah. So there is no brand longevity there. There's no buy-in to the brand. So unless you have that brand loyalty and you have that longevity of the brand, you don't really have much value. So what these FBA roll-ups are now having to do is create a D2C strategy away from Amazon to try and build a brand and build a customer base and some brand loyalty and all the rest of it, because then they can actually create some enterprise value.
Yeah.
There's no real enterprise value in just selling the products on Amazon.
Well, exactly.
So anyway, so that's, you know, the one part is that, you know, just as an e-commerce business these days, your valuation and enterprise long-term value is mitigated by the amount of technology you have. And again, you know, I've always been on the technology side, so I'm more than happy to adopt technology and build. I prefer building it than licensing it.
Yeah.
And for the long-term play, what we want to do, the total addressable market for what we're doing, what we're coining the phrase as e-commerce as a service, by, you know, packaging up all of this technology solutions and providing it to third-party businesses, is huge, and more people are needing it. And if we're going to reduce that failure rate within the e-commerce world and allow more people to try and survive and thrive, people like us need to provide that technology to them in a really cost-effective fashion and enable them to grow. So, and that's where true enterprise value is, and technology multiples is of a business. So the fact that we'd already built it, productizing it, making it available to third parties, why not?
Yeah, 100%.
Maximize value.
There we go, yeah. So let's talk about your value proposition for a business. I'm an e-commerce business. I'm doing a few million in revenue each year, let's just say. And I want to take it to the next level. So I have a conversation with yourself. What can you offer me as a business then? What can the Moot offer?
Yes, so we have two categories of companies that are currently coming to us. Mm-hmm. You have the one which is where they're an existing e-commerce business, and as we mentioned before, they're licensing so many different point solutions and pieces of technology, and they're having to integrate them all. It's becoming a nightmare. They're outsourcing operations and logistics and all these different things, and it's got really expensive, and they're losing control, and it's inhibiting their growth. So they wanted to consolidate it and find a unified kind of turnkey solution which is more cost effective and regain that control to enable them to scale. Mm-hmm. And that may be domestically, internationally, whatever it may be. The second category is where they're an earlier stage e-commerce business, fast growing. They're maybe just on a Shopify or something like that now. And they're like, we now need this. We now need that. How do we do that? Who do we go to? So by coming to somebody like us who has all of those solutions they need in order to be able to scale online, we can give them one partner for one cost and make it really easy for them. And what we do is we act as the fiscal representation for our clients.
Okay.
So say you're a UK brand and you know that there's a big market for your product in Europe or the US, we can enable you to go and sell out there, instantly. You don't have to go and register for VAT in each of the individual territories, register for sales tax in America. We do it all for you, and we do all of the distribution. So all of that headache and all of those kind of barriers to entry of international expansion, we get rid of for people.
Amazing.
So it's just about making something far more cost effective and in an expedited fashion so that they can scale quicker online. And ultimately, reduce that failure rate.
Yeah, amazing, brilliant.
And give them a fighting chance.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So along the way, since creating Olivias, what have been the biggest challenges for not only Olivias but for the main business Moot?
I've got black eyes to show the challenges. It's not cheap to build this amount of technology.
I can imagine. Yeah.
It's not easy. We had this crazy thing called Brexit. We had this other crazy thing called COVID. So, we
started at the perfect time then, really, didn't you?
We spent most of our tenure during COVID.
Amazing.
Yeah, and, I can get on my soapbox about this all day. People say that, the reason for most people's growth is COVID. All COVID did was accelerated a shift that was already happening. Yeah. So, people's appetite for technology now and the level of technology enablement they need now compared to the start of COVID is massively accelerated because of this process and having to be much more e-commerce driven. Look at John Lewis. Mm-hmm. They've doubled down on online. So the need to take on this technology and everything has only got quicker. So that's a challenge. I mean, supply chain is still a nightmare. Yeah. And even though we're not holding the stock, we feel it. So we have anything up to 60% of our best sellers out of stock at one point at the minute.
Really?
Because of the challenges with supply chain from Asia. Containers, I think, are slightly coming down a little bit now, but they're 4 or 5 times the cost of what they were before. Yeah. So there's some nice challenges. We literally see, I'm not joking, Harry, we see a new site every single week trying to be the new Olivias.
I can imagine, yeah.
And they steal our phrases, they steal our imagery.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. So we've had all of that. That's good fun. So, they're challenges, but we relish them.
Yeah, you're taking them on.
And I think that's what separates, people who start businesses to those that don't, is that if it was easy, everybody would do it.
100%.
And, my family and friends always say to me, Nick, you're mad.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't stressed, I'd be bored.
Yeah, there we go. Well, and then
it's kind of sadistic, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit weird, but we'll let you off. And then, so let's go back to you set Olivias up. At which point in the business did you realise you've got something here? Was it from day one? You set the business up and then you go like, wow, we've got all these sales, or was it, a few weeks in, a few months in that you were like, this is something?
That's a tough one. I don't know. we constantly hit challenges, whether it was working with the suppliers and getting these antiquated businesses to modernize and embrace technologies in order to be able to work with us, through to the fragility of distributing these items across the UK and all the rest of it in one piece, through to the competitive landscape. And, you know, I'd say when we bought Houseology, when we realised that what we'd achieved in 5-6 months compared to what Houseology hadn't achieved in 10 years, I think that was kind of right.
We've got something here.
Yeah, and there was a couple of other companies I knew in the space, and I'm a naturally kind of inquisitive guy, right? So I'm looking at their company's house, their financials and stuff. I think these guys are small. Like they've been going 10 years. We'll get past these by, you know, midway through our first year. Yeah. So first full year, that is. So I think then
realise that there's something here.
For Olivias, for Olivias, that's when, and there's been challenges since.
I can imagine.
There's been challenges. You know, our operations manager and everybody else, we've all felt the pains. But, you know, that's why it's fun. You know, we still get record months every single month. We're still growing at 350-400% this year on last year. Wow. You know,
unbelievable.
Like I said, we just won a ton of awards for the fastest growing homeware company. And we haven't even touched the surface. We generally haven't touched the surface of the things we want to do.
And how international have you gone? How many of your sales are UK compared to overseas?
All UK at the minute.
All UK, wow.
Yeah, all UK. We have had an incident the last 24 hours where we started playing with our internationalisation technology on Olivias, and we found a problem. But we will be live and running in the US in the next couple of months.
Amazing.
So launching in the US. We're originally going to go to Europe first, but Brexit is a nightmare.
I can imagine, yeah.
Anyone who voted leave needs to have a word with himself. It is an absolute car crash when it comes to logistics and taxation and import duties and everything else. So we should be out in Europe, I reckon, by end of Q1.
Okay, and then US?
US will be there by the end of this year.
Okay. And are you going to follow the same, I take it, the exact same business model in the US? Is it working with US suppliers, US wholesalers?
Exactly.
And following that model?
Some of our existing suppliers we can work with, but working with a lot of new suppliers out in the US. Brilliant. And, you know, just replicating what we've done in the UK out there. But the total addressable market is, I don't even know what the statistic is these days. It's like 30 times the size or something. Yeah.
Well, we've had Steve Oliver on, and he told us about his internationalization with Music Magpie. You'll have to listen to that episode.
They called it something different out there, didn't they?
Well, they called it Music Magpie initially, and the lady he first employed, he showed her the logo, which was a magpie, and he said, "What's that?" And she thought it was a penguin. They've never heard of magpies over there. They call them blue jays. So he was like, right, I think we need to rebrand this. So they called it Declutter. But anyway,
that's it, Declutter.
So that's another story. So might be worth you having a conversation with Steve. But yeah. So in terms of then the future for the business, obviously you talk about internationalization for Olivias. In terms of clientele for Bolt and the overall business Moot, where are you looking to go with that? Which clients are you targeting?
Yes, I mean it's actually been more of a trajectory on the technology side than it has with Olivias. We've got 26 clients now.
Amazing.
Already within less than a year, something like that. We power some of the biggest e-commerce businesses in the country in different elements. We've just signed some amazing contracts with even bigger kind of media organisations and everything over the next however many months. So amazing. We've got some really exciting stuff going on, and as much as Olivias remains the baby and the poster child and you know, the validation for the platform, the technology side of the business is very quickly outgrown now the own brand e-commerce, and that's our future, is a technology business, e-commerce technology company. We don't see ourselves as an e-commerce brand.
And have you got, obviously you have 3 brands currently. Do you have plans to acquire more brands, bring more brands in-house, build your own brands, or is it to focus more on the technology side of things now?
We're not a brand roll-up. Mm-hmm. There's lots of brand roll-ups going on, and it's going to be interesting to see how they play out. I think Hut Group's realising the problems with that now. So we certainly want to be focused on the technology side. That's where the true long-term value is, and current value is in our business, is in our technology. So that's where we're focusing on, and we won't look to acquire brands. We may acquire, say, you know, we want to launch out in APAC, and if we can strategically acquire a brand out there that has its own distribution center or premises and some technology, and it allows us to get to market quicker, then we will.
Yeah.
But we're not going to just acquire brands and try and do a brand roll-up play and, you know, a D2C FBA roll-up type, you know, strategy. Something on this, one of the companies I really admire in the UK is the Next Group, Next Retail, and they're taking a very different approach to that. They've got what they call their total platform, and they're acquiring businesses. I think they acquired Reese, like the majority stake in Reese, or the whole of Reese. Yeah. And then they've just done another one in Netherlands, and they're unifying and bringing together. So although they're bringing brands under kind of one roof, it's a technology-enabled play with their own platform. It's just like Ocado did.
Yeah.
You know, Ocado were one of the first to do this. They were an existing brand. They were a single brand that built a load of technology and then realised the real value was in the technology. So they licensed it out to third parties, and now look at them.
I know, they're doing unbelievably well. Yeah, absolutely crazy. So yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So in terms of, let's just very quickly just touch upon the Olivias. So you've started that, and then you've decided, you know, the technology is where you want to be. At what point was there always the idea around, let's turn this into a technology business at the start of Olivias? Or was it halfway through Olivias you realised this technology is powerful, this could be usable for other third parties, I'm going to create Bolt and the rest of the business from there?
Bit of both. So we always wanted to be a technology-enabled business. So we didn't want to be an online retailer. Yeah. We wanted to be a technology-driven e-commerce business. It was only midway through last year when we realised that people actually started asking us if we could help them.
They were directly coming to you.
Yeah, and amazing. That's when we realised there was an opportunity to kind of shift the focus, and you know, we end up bringing on a client who's got more money than God, and you know, we couldn't turn them down.
Wow!
So they helped us productize the platform and allow us to push it out to other third parties.
Amazing. And what were their challenges? Obviously, these brands and businesses were coming to you. What were their? Was it warehousing, logistics? Was it the technology stack? Was it, you know, people? You know, what were their main challenges they were coming to you for?
I think they had a bit of everything, but what you find with most of these companies, most brands, they don't want to hire developers. Yeah. They don't want to be a technology company. They're great at brand, they're great at product, and they're usually great at brand marketing. Yeah. And that's what they're good at, and that's what they want to focus on. They don't want to play with the boring stuff, which is technology and operations and systems and things like that most of the time. Yeah. So it's either that they don't have it, or they don't have an appetite to want to go down that route. They want to find a cost-effective solution that they can partner with somebody like us who can give them, you know, best-in-class technology and systems and whatnot to enable them to focus on what they're good at, which is brand, product, and marketing and scaling their business. Yeah. So I think it's more of a focus thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, and then one final thing then to sort of touch upon. If and a bit of advice really for any entrepreneur or any small e-commerce business or mid-sized e-commerce business hitting that sort of plateau, what is the one bit of advice you would give these businesses in terms of starting out or to scale? How would you? Okay, let's take it as two questions. If you're starting out a business now, e-commerce, where would you start and how would you do it? Not in a specific sector, and conversely, if you're a sort of a mid-sized business, what would you focus your time, effort, and energy on?
I think if I was advising somebody who's starting an e-commerce business now,
don't start.
I'd say think about it very, very deeply, and speak to other people that have done it before and realise what the complexities in that are. It's not as it was 10 years ago, as we mentioned. You can't just start a business from your garage now and start on Shopify and grow like the Gymsharks and stuff like that. You can't do it anymore.
It's expensive to play in that market as well, isn't it?
Yeah, most of the ones that are starting up are in some kind of fast fashion, and there's a lot of vertical specialization that's going on. And I think that's a really key bit, is find out what your focus is and find your little niche, or the Americans say niche, whatever it is. So yeah, focus on something specific. We spoke about a great Manchester company earlier, which is Arnclo.
Yeah.
Superb business, and what they did was said, we're going to be a fashion apparel business, but we're purely going to focus on this type of design, this type of sector, because this is what we're good at and this is what we like, and they've smashed it.
Yeah.
So I think don't try and do too much, try and be too widespread. Another great company, Jaded London.
Okay, yeah.
Who the Rich Chappell, who you'll be seeing in a few days, he works with, and they've got a really kind of unique design, and like you see one of their items and you know it's Jaded.
Yeah.
Because the style of it. And there's nothing better than that. And so many people lack that these days. We haven't nailed it with Olivias. It's like you see somebody with a woman and they've got the red bottom shoe, you know it's a Louboutin from a distance.
Yeah.
And Jaded have got that, On have got that, and I think if you can nail that, that's the real kind of pivotal point, isn't it?
Nice, yeah. Brilliant. Amazing. Well, Nick, that's been really useful to, I think, all the listeners there, and what a great story. Thank you very much for coming on today.
No, thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Pal.
Thank you.
God, it's hot in them.
Yeah, I know, yeah.